Good afternoon, everyone. Ms. Carpenter, would you call the roll?
Trustee Fleming. Trustee Geist. Here. Trustee Harper.
Here.
Trustee Jones.
Here.
Trustee Oakley.
Here.
Trustee Sigardi.
Here.
Trustee Stites.
Here.
Trustee Van Hooser.
Here.
Trustee Wilmore.
Here.
Mr. President, all trustees are present.
All right, thank you very much. There's a letter in your board materials from Governor Haslam authorizing me to, on his behalf, go ahead and convene the inaugural meeting of the Tennessee Tech Board of Trustees. And it's my pleasure to do that at this time. So the meeting is officially called to order. Let me just make a couple of brief comments about what we'll be taking up today. First of all, let me thank all the board members for serving in this capacity and taking time out of your busy schedules to be here today. This is truly a historic occasion for Tennessee Tech University, and it's great to have such a wonderful board, a very talented board, and I know in speaking to each of you individually, a dedicated group of individuals to serve in this capacity. So thank you. We're very grateful to you. Also want to thank all the staff that have put in countless hours to prepare for this inaugural meeting, and congratulations to them on a job very well done. We have a number of items to take up at this meeting, most of which is housekeeping type duties related to board operations. So we'll be adopting a set of bylaws with your approval. We'll also be selecting leadership of the board, selecting a student member of the board, and a group of board level policies that will enable the board to operate and function legally and appropriately in days to come. I will give a brief report as president at the appropriate time, and then there will be a small group of action items related to non-mandatory fees and approval of a new academic program for your consideration this afternoon as well. So with your permission, we'll go ahead and proceed through the agenda, starting with the bylaws. There's a summary, I think, provided to each of you of the articles of the bylaws. I'm going to ask Ms. Carpenter, if she would, to walk us through those briefly, and then you can determine if you want to approve the bylaws article by article, or if you want to take them all up as one group at that particular time. So, Ms. Carpenter.
Article 1 states the authority of the board, references the Tennessee statute that sets the composition of the board, the appointment terms and conditions of membership, the powers and responsibilities of the board, and the officers of the board, including the method of conducting business in the absence of an officer or officers. Article 2 states the requirements related to regular and special meetings, including certain requirements under the Tennessee Open Meetings Act, quorum requirements, the method of setting the agenda and time frame for providing the agenda to the board members, the manner of taking action, including requirements under the Tennessee Open Meetings Act, and the recording of minutes. Article 3 requires the board to establish committees by policy. Article 4 relates to the officers of Tennessee Tech, including the authority of the president to appoint officers of Tennessee Tech subject to any limitations imposed by the board, the method of making interim appointments, including the appointment of an interim president. Article 5 includes miscellaneous provisions of the method for suspending bylaws, the method for permanently altering bylaws, and a provision for interested parties to address the board.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Are there any questions, or otherwise, if not, I will entertain a motion to adopt the bylaws, or entertain a motion to take them article by article.
And I move that we take them jointly together.
Okay. Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion about that particular motion? Any concern about taking them all as one? Okay. We need a vote on that, I guess. We need a affirmative vote. All in favor of taking them all up as one? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, so now I would entertain a motion to accept the bylaws as presented.
That's a move.
Okay,
Second.
all right. So it's been moved and seconded to accept the bylaws as presented. Any questions, concerns need to be addressed at this time? Discussion? We need a roll call vote on actually adopting the bylaws. So with no discussion, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Carpenter?
Trustee Fleming,
Aye. Yeah.
Trustee Geis, Trustee Harper,
Aye.
Trustee Jones,
Aye.
Trustee Oakley,
Aye.
Trustee Segurty,
Aye.
Trustee Stites,
Aye.
Trustee Van Hooser,
Aye.
Trustee Wilmore.
Aye.
Mr. President, 8 votes in favor.
Okay. Well, congratulations, we have bylaws. As part of the bylaws, it sets up leadership on behalf of the board of a chairman and vice chairman, leadership positions. And so I would open the floor for nominations at this time for selection of chairman. Mr.
Mr.
Oakley.
Chairman, we got a wealth of talent here, and I think most of them could serve on as chairman, but it occurs to me that Tom Jones is a logical choice. He's got a background. He's been chairman of the Tech Foundation and did a really good job for that. He's engineering committee, and he's local. That helps, I think. He's probably more accessible. So I would like to place in nomination Tom Jones.
I second that. Second.
Okay. Tom has been nominated and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor of Tom Jones being named chairman of the board? Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. The meeting is now yours.
Thank you. I guess just to start, I wanted to say I'm humbled by your kind words and humbled to be a part of this board. I truly feel like I don't have a background in academia. I don't have a PhD. I hope I'm not the dumbest guy in the room in this role. So I'll do my best. And thank you for trusting me with that honor. So I guess the first order of action is we need to elect a vice chair. So at this time, I'd like to open up the floor for a vice chair nomination.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Trudy Harper as the vice chair. I think she would make a great team, and look forward to the opportunity to working for both of you.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, no further discussion. All in favor of Trudy Harper as vice chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Trudy Harper is now the vice chair. So
Thank you,
moving-
Mr. Chairman.
Would you like to say anything?
No, thank you.
All right, moving forward, the next item on the agenda is the approval of board policies. And we have 6 major policy areas. I would ask Kay Carpenter to go through the board policies, and then we'll, following that, ask for or entertain a motion to take them all together, or if there's any discussion required, we can take them individually as we did the bylaws. So, Ms. Carpenter?
Policy 001 establishes certain requirements related to trustees' obligations to conduct the business of the board in an ethical manner and consistent with statutory and accrediting requirements related to conflicts of interest. Many of the requirements are derived from the statutes, from accreditation principles, or from Governor Haslam's Executive Order Number 20 related to ethics in conducting state business for state employees. Policy 002 provides that the board can establish any means of selection of the president with due consideration to the campus community and diversity. The policy also establishes the board's authority to set the president's compensation in terms and conditions, including an evaluation process, and describes the method for making interim appointment to the president's position if it becomes vacant. Policy 003 describes the powers the board retains and the powers that it delegates to the president. Generally, the board retains authority over matters related to budgeting, fees, capital projects, real estate transactions, and most fiscal matters, residency requirements, admission requirements, degree requirements, tenure, establishment, and change of academic programs, and any policy that must be promulgated as a rule. Policy 004 authorizes the president to act in an emergency without seeking board approval. Policy 005 establishes the following committees and their respective duties: academic, student affairs, research, advancement, athletics, audit, that would be Committee 1. Committee 2, audit, compliance, finance, compensation, facilities, as a second committee, and the third is the executive committee. Policy 006 confirms Tennessee Tech's commitment to diversity and to equal access in its programs, activities, and employment.
Okay, thank you. Having heard just a summary of all the policies, I'd like to hear a motion to take them either all together or individually.
I move we take them all together, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Johnny Stites moved to take them all together
I'll
as a
second.
vote. We have a second by Mr. Barry Wilmore. Any other further discussion? Comments, concerns? So all in favor of taking the policies all together, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, I think we also need a vote or a motion to accept and adopt these policies. So I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the policies.
Second.
Mr. Pernis Agurdy has moved to adopt the policies. Johnny Stites has made a second. Is there any further discussion on the policies before we accept them?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, and it's not about the policy itself, but it's about an implementation of the policy. So maybe I should just, as I was saying that, I realized I probably should wait till we vote, and then I'll ask a question if you'll give me a right to reserve that opportunity after the policy. Is that appropriate?
Is it a question that could require an edit to the policy?
No.
Just on implementation?
Yeah, well, I'll just go ahead and tell you what it's about. I'm going to question whether or not we need to take an action as a board under policy 002 to affirm Phil Oldham as the president, since we have the right to appoint the president or select the president or have some words to that effect. And I don't think we need to do anything with it. I think the policy is appropriate. I just think we may, as a board, need to affirm his appointment as president.
I think that we will take that up later.
Okay, great.
It's not on the agenda, but I think that that's a very good idea. And if you'll help me not forget at the end of the meeting under new business, we'll take it up at that time.
Well, and it may be more appropriate to take it up at the next meeting and give adequate notice. Ms. Carpenter, I don't know how you feel about that, if this was,
No, I think if you wish to take it up under the other business agenda item, that would be appropriate.
okay. Then I certainly don't have any problem with the policy as it's stated.
Any other discussion on the policy as stated? Do you need a roll call vote?
We do not, but if you would like.
I think as the policy is significantly important, I think we want to go ahead and do a roll call vote on that just individually. So, Ms. Carpenter?
Trustee Fleming. Trustee Geist. Trustee Harper.
Aye.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Oakley.
Aye.
Trustee Sigardi.
Aye.
Trustee Stites.
Aye.
Trustee Van Hooser.
Aye.
And Trustee Wilmore.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, you have a affirmative votes.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. Okay, we're to agenda item number 5. This is a selection of a student trustee. And if the 3 nominees would please step forward. You have Mr. Bobby Adams, Michaela Holton, and Nick Russell. Just, you can just come forward a little bit. I hate to impose upon you too much. Just as you're coming forward, just a couple of comments. This is a tough thing because normally for a position like this, at least, in my business or structure, I would prefer to interview people individually and privately and to be able to make those comments and discussions. So it's difficult as a board in an open meeting to actually do that. However, I think that the university has presented us with three very, very fine candidates. So what I would like to do, if you don't mind, is each of you take about a minute, 2 minutes, and tell us, you know, why you want to take on this responsibility. Is that all right? Do you want them to come to the mic? Why don't we start off with Bobby Adams? You want to go ahead and come to the mic just for recording purposes? Sorry to put you on the spot, but if you're going to be part of this board, that may happen more often than you realize. Go ahead.
I'd like to begin by thanking Governor Haslam and President Oldham and the board for allowing us this opportunity to speak and be here today. I'm deeply honored to be nominated by the Student Government Association and to represent the students of Tennessee Tech in this position. During my time at Tennessee Tech, I've had the opportunity to participate and be engaged with various aspects of student life in Tech's campus. From my freshman year of playing tuba in the Golden Eagle Marching Band, to being a Frisbee player on the Ultimate Team, to being a part of Greek life, engaging with undergraduate research, giving tours to prospective students, and sharing why I love Tennessee Tech to the many families that visit our campus. From being a senator in SGA, and later having the humbling experience to serve the student body as the SGA president, and helping to make an impact by ensuring that all students have the opportunity to reap the same rewarding Tech experience that I've had. With my background across campus, experience in various leadership positions, history of working with my peers, as well as the university administration, and overall passion for Tennessee Tech, I believe that I'm uniquely qualified to serve with you on the board as the student trustee. I'm very excited about this opportunity and understand the depth, commitment, and responsibility that comes with it is no small matter. I look forward to seeing what the board will bring to Tennessee Tech and how you will enrich the Tech experience. Again, thank you everyone for having us here today and for letting us share this historic day with you.
Thank you, Bobby. Michaela?
I've lived in the Upper Cumberland all of my life. Tech has always been a part of that. My mom worked here, and graduated from here, and so Tech was solidified for me as the university I was going to come to. This was going to be the school that was going to help mold me into the adult I wanted to be. Because of this, I wanted to give back to Tennessee Tech. How? I didn't know just yet. When I soared through onto campus the first time, I heard about the Student Government Association. I applied and I was selected as freshman senator, and I served as senator for 3 years, and I was also the judicial advisor to the Supreme Court for 1 year. This has allowed me to be the voice of the students, and I wish to continue this on this board. While serving on the student government, I've seen the inner workings of Tennessee Tech by serving on committees. I've also been involved with other leadership organizations such as the Girl Scouts of America, the International Order of the Rainbow for Girls, and Leadership Overton Youth Academy. I was also elected as vice president my high school year for 2 years and student council for 1. With that experience, and this experience combined here with Tech, I believe that gives me the experience I need to be the voice of the students on this board. I wish to also say thank you for the consideration of the board, and I wish to congratulate you guys on becoming the trustees. And I wish the best for the years to come. So with that, I'm concluded. Wings up.
Thank you, Michaela. Nick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and the board. My name is Nick Russell. I'm a senior here in mechanical engineering. I'm originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee, but have been living in Cookeville full-time with my family for the last 3 years, so consider myself a Cookevillian at this point. Tennessee Tech, I'm so passionate about this school because this is where I became an adult, became a man, became a husband, a father, became a professional, became a leader, and ultimately discovered my identity for myself. That's why I'm so passionate about this school and why I want to give back to it. So I came here as a bright undergrad, had a great freshman year. I wanted to preface this 30 minutes ago, and they said, you might have to speak. I thought, what does Tennessee Tech mean to me? And the first vision that came to my mind was just the word hope, because that's what Tennessee Tech has meant in my life. It's given me a great amount of hope for the present and the future. But like I said, I had a great freshman year. After my freshman year, I actually found out my girlfriend at the time was pregnant. So we were going to be having a child. I was going to be getting married, and I actually thought I might have to withdraw from Tennessee Tech. I didn't know if I'd have to go to a community college or go to online classes. But specific individuals at this university helped me realize that I could stay here, that I could thrive here. People in the financial aid office helped me understand how I could afford to continue to go to Tech. People in career and professional services helped me find jobs that I've been able to support myself throughout school. Professors worked with me while I had 2 children while I was in undergrad here. All these people along the way have developed me who I am as a leader and as a person. Through my peers here at Tennessee Tech, they've been incredibly influential to me. I got to go to the Tennessee Intercollegiate State Legislature and serve there for several years. Got the pleasure of working with Bobby in student government as vice president. And ultimately, one of the highlights of my life to this point, got to serve on the Tennessee Board of Regents for almost a year and a half while the Focus Act was in transition. And that experience was an incredible growth opportunity and makes me believe that I'll be able to serve this board exceptionally well, understanding a lot of the issues in the state of Tennessee around higher ed, and having ramped up during that year and a half period. I think that I could come in and immediately provide value. I want to be the trustee, not just because it's a prestigious position, which it is, everybody understands that, but because being on the board, being in vice president of the student government, and being a student who needed a lot of help here at Tennessee Tech, I saw how decisions that were made at the board level affected individual lives at the student level. And whoever this board member is, they're going to be making decisions that are going to help the next generation of students thrive, have opportunities here. The leaders of the world, whenever my kids are growing up, are going to be the graduates of the school today. And so I want to make sure that graduates today and tomorrow have all the opportunities and many more that myself, Bobby, and Michaela had. I want to make sure that if there's a Nick Russell here, in 10 years, he's able to do everything I was able to do and even thrive to a greater degree. With that, I'll conclude my comments. I was going to ask if you all had any questions, but since my peers maybe didn't get to take any, I guess I'll step aside. But thanks again for your time, and good luck. I know it's a hard task. These guys are great, so good luck.
Thank you, Nick. I would like to say, are there any questions that any of us have for any of the potential student trustees? Yes, Barbara?
I'm not sure it's a question, but remember I had asked you, Tom, about the possibility of the Student Advisory Board, and so I just wanted to raise this. We've got 3 incredibly good candidates, and so the idea of selecting one, the only reason we're here, the only reason there's a board, the only reason there's a president is for the sake of the students. And just having that one voice, we can only have that one voice because that's, I guess, in law. But I would propose that we have a student advisory board that could include the 2 that aren't selected and maybe others as well. So I just threw that out as something to consider.
Let's take this in order. I think that it is necessary, according to the bylaws that we've set up, that we have a single student trustee. But I do think it's a very good idea to also have almost a student advisory council. And I would say maybe we should do it in 2 motions. The first one being selecting the trustee, and then I would suggest maybe followed by a motion keeping the other 2 as that student advisory council. Is that what you had in mind?
Yes.
Okay. So having said that, I'd like to entertain a motion to select one of the 3. Well, is there any other discussion on them? Any comments, discussion? Maybe I should ask it this way. Students, do you have any questions for us? So I'd like to entertain a motion to nominate one of these students to be the student trustee representative.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Nick Russell. It's a hard decision. They're all very capable, but I think he is uniquely qualified. I was on the Board of Regents when he came there, and he did an excellent job, and so I think he would serve Tech equally well.
Okay, we have a nomination for Nick Russell. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Teresa? So we have a name and a second. Any other discussion?
I just have to add that they are all equally qualified, and it had to be somebody, I guess.
All in favor of Nick Russell as our student trustee signify by saying aye. All opposed? Congratulations, Nick. Barbara, I think you had another motion?
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that we establish a student advisory group, council, whatever we want to call it, to the board, so that we have additional student input. And do we want to roll that into the
And
motion to add Bobby and Michaela?
I would add both of their names into that motion to be complete, wouldn't you say?
Okay.
So the motion is that we establish a student advisory council, and Michaela Holton and Bobby Adams will make up the remainder of that council. Nick Russell, you are the chair. You have the responsibility of board meetings, but you also have the added responsibility to listen to, consult with, and take advice from these fine students. And before I call the question, I have one last question for the three of you in this role. Is it your intention that you will all be here during this term? Yes, sir. I see them all signifying yes. Okay. So anyway, all in favor of this motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All oppose? Motion carries. Thank you very much. So we are, at this time. Yes. Okay, at this time, we're going to take a very short recess. We have a special guest coming in. And it'll take just a few moments for Mr. Russell to take a seat at the table. And so I'm recessing the meeting for just a few moments. Don't go too far away.
I would. Thank you all, and I apologize for walking in late in the middle of the meeting. My day job in Nashville kept me over there until just now. So I really wanted to be here because to me this is a historic occasion. I think this is a difference maker for this university. This is already a great university that impacts this entire region. But I think having men and women of this caliber who wake up every day thinking about how can I help Tennessee Tech be a even better university will mean a lot, not just for this school, but the entire region. So I want to start by thanking each of you for serving. Each of these folks has plenty to do in their life already. And none of them did this because they thought it would be just an honor or fun. They did it because they loved the school and they were willing to come serve. And they come from different backgrounds, but all of them believe that Tennessee Tech made a difference in changing their life. And I very much appreciate that. I want to congratulate Nick. It's great to see you in another role. Thanks for continuing to serve us. We're grateful for that. But before I go further, I also want to thank Representative, but also Majority Leader Ryan Williams, who sponsored the Focus Act for us. And if you don't think it makes a difference who sponsors a bill, you've never been in Nashville before. It makes quite a bit of difference. And Ryan believes in this university and as a resident of this community understands the impact it has far beyond this campus. And so thank you, Leader, for the impact that you had in making certain this happened. One comment and then two maybe I don't know what I'd call them, but two maybe pieces of advice for the board. The first is this: it is hard to underestimate the impact of this university. I was thinking, I think my numbers are right. Of the teachers in the Putnam County system, 90% of them graduated from Tennessee Tech. Of the folks working over at the Regional Med Center, Cookeville's Regional Med Center, 25% of those folks have degrees from Tennessee Tech. Tennessee Tech has taken people to space and to Wall Street and everywhere else in between. And I honestly believe the impact of this university, while it's been great, will be even more in the future. I'm going to turn the board back over to you in 1 second, but I just have two things to say. Number one, I hope you do have part of your reason for doing this is to say, what can I do to make this an even better university? And two, I think we're all a product of the standards and the aspirations we set. And this, I hope this, you look at this as saying, what can I do to help to make this an even better university? The second thing is this, and I say this as a word of warning, there will be moments when you might be frustrated with the state. I love the idea of Tennessee Tech having its own board. It's like I said, I'm a little biased toward, but I think it's a great idea. But I also want to remind everybody that you're still part of the higher education system in the state of Tennessee. There will be times when you think we should have this degree program or do this or that, and the Tennessee Higher Education Commission will become involved in that part of the decision because we do want to make certain we're thinking about higher education from the whole state's perspective. So I have two conflicting pieces of advice. Number one, wake up every day making this a great university. But the second, it's not really conflicting, but is to realize that you're still part of the system of higher education in Tennessee that encompasses four-year schools and community colleges and colleges of applied technology as well. And I think we'll all be better off for that. So final thing again is thank you. There's some of these folks, like I said, I had full lives, and when I called or went to see them to ask them to do this, they in polite way said, the last thing I need is one more thing to do, but I want to do it for Tennessee Tech. So thank you all for agreeing to serve. With that, I will turn the microphone back over.
Governor, thank you so much, and thank you for gracing us with your presence here. Obviously, it's very, very important to us, but just your presence here makes it real. Thank you. So anyway, continuing on with the meeting agenda, we are up to the appointment of committee members. We're looking at two committees plus the executive committee, and I'll take the executive committee first. According to the bylaws, the chair and the vice chair are part of that executive committee, and we need one more at-large member on the executive committee. I would like to suggest and entertain a motion that Johnny Stites serve as that at-large member, mainly because of his past experience on the TBR. So, but you know, nominations are open for anyone. So I would ask for nominations for at-large member for the executive committee.
I'll nominate Johnny. I agree with that. I think he'd be great.
Second that.
So Barbara Fleming has made the motion and Perna has seconded. Is there any other discussion or any other nominations for the executive committee? Hearing none, all in favor of Johnny Stites being the at-large member for the executive committee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All oppose? Johnny Stites, thank you very much. You do agree to accept that position. Thank you. The rest of it is that we have two committees. They have rather long names. The first one is the Academic, Student Affairs, Research, Advancement, and Athletics Committee. That is a lot to manage. The point is, we're a fairly small board, and there's only so much that we can do. And the committee chairs and the committee appointments, as I understand it, do not require board consent. That is a chair appointment.
That is a chair under Board Policy 5. That is the prerogative of the chair.
So for that first committee, I would like to ask Barbara Fleming if you would chair that committee.
Be happy to do that.
Thank you very much. And I'll find the other chair, and then we'll talk about committee assignments. So the second committee is the Audit, Compliance, Finance, Compensation, and Facilities Committee. It's a mouthful. I would like to ask Teresa Van Heuser to chair that committee.
I'd be happy to accept it, I think.
Thank you so
Yes, I
much.
would. Thank you.
So, two things with the other board members that remain. I would like to ask each of them to serve on at least one committee. And for the first committee, Barbara Fleming's committee, the Academic, Student Affairs, Research, Advancement, and Athletics. Barry, would you be willing to serve on that committee?
I'd be honored to.
Thank you very much. And Melissa Geis, would you be willing to serve on that committee? I think it's appropriate.
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Oakley, since that committee does cover advancement, I was going to ask you, since you are clearly the most advanced person in the room, but I decided to save that for the other committee. So, Mr. Oakley, would you serve on the Audit, Compliance, Finance, Compensation, and Facilities Committee with your financial background? Thank you very much, Mr. Oakley. And Perna, also with your financial background, would you serve on that committee as well?
It'd be an honor, thank you.
Thank you very much. So all trustees are now assigned to committees, and the committees are formed. I think we're ready to move on to the next agenda item. Correct?
Yes.
So agenda item number 7 is ratification of a board secretary. The planned board secretary would be Kay Carpenter. But before we do that, Dr. Oldham, would you like to say just a few words and introduce her role and qualifications?
Absolutely. Be happy to, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Carpenter has served in the capacity of Tennessee Tech's attorney either on campus directly or through her previous role with the Tennessee Board of Regents for about 6 years now. So she's very knowledgeable about the institution. Prior to that, she was Deputy Commissioner and General Counsel for the State of Tennessee Department of Human Resources and Assistant Attorney General, so she also has a significant amount of experience at the state level with the state bureaucracy. She understands board function activities, and I will give her the lion's share of credit for actually preparing for this meeting and putting all the policy work in place to stand the board up initially. So thanks to her, and I think she's incredibly well qualified to do this, and I support this action on behalf of the board.
So I need a motion ratifying Kay Carpenter as the board secretary.
So moved.
Second.
Perna? Sue, I heard, and Johnny as a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of Kay Carpenter being ratified as our secretary signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Kay, you are the secretary. Moving right along, the next item agenda is number 8, and it is basically has to do with Tennessee Tech entering into a PPA with the U.S. Department of Education, and I believe we need to hear from Mr. Greg Holt regarding this matter.
Tennessee Tech was required to enter into a program participation agreement to receive federal student aid. This is a requirement of the Department of Education. Whenever a institution has a change in governance, a new board, the Department of Education also requires the governing authority to acknowledge our continuing responsibilities under our agreement. Therefore, I am asking that the board acknowledge that we have continued responsibilities under our program participation agreement.
So the question is, we need a motion that this board acknowledges the program participation agreement with the U.S. Department of Education. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and our, well, yes, and our responsibilities under it, our continued responsibilities.
Okay. Mr. Oakley makes that motion. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Do we have a second? Johnny Stites? Any other questions, discussion regarding that for Mr. Holt? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We do acknowledge the program participation agreement with the U.S. Department of Education and its various fiduciary responsibilities. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, moving on along. One other comment that I wanted to say that I missed back on item number 7 on the committees formed. Before you do your report, Dr. Oldham, can we now at this time get staff assigned to the committee chairs to support those committee chairs and give them a point of contact?
Oh, absolutely. We can, since we've done some revision to those committee structures, it may take us just a few minutes to rearrange the staffing, but we have staffing in place to support those committees, and we'll be happy to provide that to the board as soon as that's available.
That'll be great. Perfect. So, something else, Mr. Stites?
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to bring up a point that Dr. Carpenter brought to our attention about governance. We either need to have a clause somewhere in one of these committees that committee is responsible for governance, or maybe even better, it would be to have a committee on governance, because the people that we should be most responsible for monitoring and making sure they're doing the best job they possibly can do are the people sitting around this table. If we aren't monitoring ourselves and providing metrics to grade ourselves, then how can we expect the students and faculty and everyone else at the university to do that? So I'm not suggesting we decide that today, but we should be thinking about it and seeing if we don't think there ought to be a governance committee, or at least somewhere in a mission of one of the committees, the responsibility for looking at the governance model that we're using.
I think that's a very good point.
Thank you.
Ms. Carpenter, I would request that you please let the minutes reflect that at our first executive committee meeting, that the executive committee will take that up and look at it.
And Mr. Chairman, we may even want to consider the executive committee having that responsibility so as to not create another committee. I mean,
I think that's perfectly well and intended.
Okay.
That's the only reason why I would just say bring it up at the next executive
Right.
committee meeting.
As
Good.
long as it's somebody's responsibility, that's all I think is important.
Well, being as you're on the executive committee, Johnny, it may be yours. Thank you for bringing that up. President Ullman, we're ready for your report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to do this fairly quickly. I thought it was appropriate to give a quick snapshot of to the board at this inaugural meeting of both the academic and financial health of the institution. There are a couple of action items on down the agenda related to student fees that are appropriate. I think you need some context for making those decisions. So that's what this is about. I'll walk you through very quickly about 6 or 7 slides. These are at a pretty high altitude, but I want to give you a flavor of a couple things. One is I've already mentioned the academic and financial health of the institution, but I do want to point out that there are challenges that we face and give you some indication of how we're addressing those. I also want to really emphasize the highly competitive nature of higher education today and the rapidly changing landscape that we face. And so that alone creates some challenges. But I also want you to feel confident that we we are addressing these with a lot of data. The decisions that we make are data-driven, and we support decisions with information that informs that. And as a board, it will be my obligation and my priority to make sure you as a board are well informed and provided with all that information as well, so that you can provide, you can have the best informed decisions possible along the way. I can't go into a lot of detail today, obviously, because of the time constraints, but my pledge to you is to try to set up at the earliest convenience, possibly this summer, maybe in a more of a retreat format, and do a much deeper dive into these and other data that can be helpful to you, I think, in looking at our current situation and where the opportunities are for the future. What you see in this particular slide is a multi-year longitudinal data set on enrollment, both by head count and full-time equivalents. And you can see the lines at the top of the graph indicate what the overall university enrollment in Tennessee, public university, has done over the similar period. So you see a general decline in, not a significant decline in enrollment at universities over the last 5 years. And I will point out that 2015 is the last year that we have data here, primarily because some of the other slides, we want to do some comparisons with other institutions, and that's the most recent data that we had available for other institutions. So some of the decline at the universities in the last couple of years has been because of changes in state policy that actually have driven more students into higher education, which is a wonderful thing. But there's been a short-term, hopefully short-term issue at the university level that we're also dealing with. But we're not alone in that. I think 6 of the 9 public universities have seen similar decline. First year of Tennessee Promise would have been 2014. That's right, isn't it? Fall of 14?
Fall of 15.
Fall of 15, okay.
So President Oldham, if you think about the high school students graduating, what percent is that? Are you seeing student body coming out of high school is also declining?
It is. The demographic in Tennessee is we're in a little bit of a trough right now. I think the demographics show that we should see, the Southeast will see an increase in college-age population as opposed to other parts of the country, but the demographic continues to change.
So this is a percent of students being available. Is that flat, or does that change?
My friends at THEC can probably address that question better than I can. Mike, do you want to?
For just a moment, for the purposes of the record, if you could turn on the microphone so that it is on.
Yeah. Faulty mic.
My apologies.
Generally flat. The high school graduation population for our public schools, which is primarily what we track, ranges anywhere from 70 to 74,000, which taken within the statewide population, fluctuations there aren't large. What's going up is the number of those students going to any college, and we call that the college going rate. So that's in any given senior class, how many the immediate fall after graduation go to college. So the other side of this slide that certainly wouldn't be text to share, but the statewide policy we're proud of is in that 2015 year, we saw the number of students going to any college go up by 4,000 students, raw number, 5% in 12 months. Just to provide some perspective, that 5% one-year increase is larger than the previous 6 years combined. So that was an explosive increase in college going.
But to be fair to Tech, you should explain how many of those were going to community college and the shift in attendance.
And Governor, so here at Tech and the University of Memphis were the ones where we saw the most pronounced shift. We know of the 4,000, we believe those were unique students. They weren't going anywhere, and they went to community college. And then here at Tech, you probably saw about 300 students who would have gone to Tech who chose to go to a community college, and a somewhat commensurate number at Memphis, and I think those numbers bear that out. You shifted from about 9,900 to 9,500 in that year, and the governor's absolutely right, and it's actually, we discussed that this morning at the training, Governor. We know that was a promise shift. We know that the Upper Cumberland student was more sensitive to the messaging. What we hope is that next fall and the fall after, we begin to see a transfer increase.
Thanks, Mike. Now, one thing that I haven't shown here is that, and we're in uncharted territory, so we're walking through this. But right now, as of this time last year, we're ahead by about 20% over both first-time freshman applications and transfer applications. The transfer applications you can sort of rationalize by saying, okay, those students are finishing or expecting to finish their second year at community college, and so more of them would be ready to transfer. The rise in the first-time freshman applications is harder to sort of rationalize in this environment. So it's a little bit unpredictable right now. It's a good leading indicator, but we're still working through that. This next slide talks about resident tuition and fees compared to other state institutions. Not all the state institutions, but a fairly representative set of state institutions. And probably the takeaway here is that we're down on the lower end of tuition and fees for state institutions. We like being in that position. We want to make an education at Tennessee Tech very affordable, and so we'll strive to continue in that regard. But there's always a balance between cost and quality, and so striking that balance is our ongoing struggle. This slide talks about state appropriations. Fortunately, we're in a trend over the last 2 or 3 years where we've seen an increase in state appropriations going into higher education, thanks to Governor Haslam and the state legislative leadership. But it's still we're in a bit of a trough relative to post-recession days, and so that's some of the challenge there. You heard more about that this morning. And even though the state funding doesn't come to us in a per student FTE basis, I think it is important to point out that on a per student basis, we're educating very competitive students for the job market at a very marginal cost to the state of Tennessee, which I think that's good, but it also puts us in a little bit of bind on the quality side. Retention rates. I can give you a little bit update on this as well. We're up near the top in the state among public institutions in terms of first-year retention rates. This shows us at about 75%. Actually, this last fall, which the data's not on this slide, we hit a record high of 79% first-year retention rates at Tennessee Tech. Just to give you perspective, in the last 5 years, that's risen by about 10 percentage points. We've gone from about 70% first-year retention rate to 79, and so a significant amount of progress in a pretty short period of time. And I think that would put us probably number 2 behind UT Knoxville at this point in time. 6-year graduation rates, similar. First-year retention rates are a leading indicator of student success. 6-year graduation rates are really a lagging indicator of that. And these are data, the most comparable data we can have is that reported by the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, which shows us here second behind UTK in terms of 6-year graduation rates at just over 60%. We want to do better than that. That's not where our aspiration is. We can and should be doing better than that, and that's what we aspire to do. Student-faculty ratios, clearly, what we've learned in this era of student success, where student success is really the goal of institutions and not just access, high touch is very important. And so we want to make sure that the number of faculty that we have on campus is appropriate to the number of students that we're attempting to serve. And so we've made a significant effort in the last few years to lower the student-faculty ratio, and actually right now, this graph shows us at 19-1, which is fairly comparable with most of our peer institutions. I think this year we probably are closer to 18-1. We will continue to push on that at every opportunity. But 18-1 was actually our initial goal about 4 years ago, and so we're right on the verge of getting to that point anyway. With that, again, that's a very quick, high-altitude kind of view of where we are competitively and academically. I'll point out that we continue to be rated as the top return on investment among all public and private institutions in the state of Tennessee. And that's based on a combination of the cost of attendance as well as the earning potential of graduates when they complete a degree. I'll also point out that as an institution, we just completed our 10-year reaffirmation for accreditation with the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, at which we received a perfect reaffirmation report, no recommendations whatsoever, completely clear review for another 10 years of accreditation, which probably puts us in the top 5 or 10% of institutions going through that review cycle. So all the indicators are very positive. We're moving in the right direction, but I will point out that the challenges of a competitive higher education marketplace are very real here to us, and we cannot stay where we are. We've got to continue to move forward. With that, I'm going to ask Dr. Clary Stinson, our Chief Financial Officer, to give a very quick overview of the financial health of the institution.
Okay. Thank you. All right. This is going to be a pretty high level, and so we'll just go through a few items, and of course the finance and the business committee will have a chance to really dig into these in the board at our later meetings. And so we do have audited financial statements. We are audited on an annual basis by the State Division of Audit. We did receive an unmodified opinion on our 2006 financial statements. Those audited financial statements are available on the State Audit's website at the address that is shown there. As we're monitoring our financial health from year to year, we do use some national benchmarks. These are measures and ratios that have been developed by KPMG specifically for higher education. They started out, they've been around for years. They started out with private institutions in about late 90s. They moved into the public institutions, so we'll look at some of those. They are designed to answer certain risk questions. What is the institution's overall financial health? Is the overall composite score, which is the combination of the other four. There is a liquidity measure, there is a viability measure, a return on assets measure, and also a net operating revenues measure. So we'll talk first about the composite financial index. It is it does take the four remaining ratios, and it does weigh those and scale those to give us an overall score. That single score allows for us to take into consideration the weaknesses in individual ratios and adjust for those. As I said, there's an expected value that's been established as a national benchmark, and we do have trends. We've been tracking this for over 10 years. So look at the first graph. This is our composite financial index. As you can see, the red line is the expected. It is the benchmark on a national basis. The green line is the watch line. Anything below that green line, then it alerts us that we might need to be taking a look at some of the things that we're doing, get ourselves back into line. The blue line is, of course, the 10-year line for Tennessee Tech. And as you can see, in 2007, we were at 4.8 for a composite measure. And in 2016, we're at 3.42. It's jumped around a little bit, and as you'll see as I go through the rest of the ratios, that is affected by what's going on with those other ratios. So the second one we're going to look at is our primary reserve ratio, which is our liquidity ratio. It is the measure of how well or at what level our reserves are maintained. it's as Dr. Oldham had said a few minutes ago about the balance between quality and cost. This is a balance between how well are you using your resources, and are you maintaining a proper reserve level? And so, that's a balance that we do. As you can see, we started out in 2007. We were below the red watch line. We have made a lot of improvements there, and currently in 2016, we're at the 0.48 level above the watch. The next one is the viability ratio, which is our debt, how well we're managing our debt. As you can see, in 2007, we started out with a little bit below the red watch line, and we bounced around a little bit, and we are currently at 1.36. The next one is our return on net assets ratio. And this ratio is measuring the change in total net assets, the change in total net assets over total net assets, beginning balances. So it's really kind of a measure of how much how well you have used the resources that you have. And so this is kind of a little bit of a strange trend line for TTU. So I went back to look at it. One of the things that influences this pretty significantly is state capital appropriations. So the big gap that you see, the big distance between the red line and the blue line in 2007, we had $10 million worth of state capital appropriations coming in that particular year. And that was the year that this building was under construction, and we were receiving state dollars for that. On the other hand, in 2016, we had right at $2 million of state appropriations. So that one, it is an indicator of how well we're using our resources, whether we have capacity. So we do have some capacity if you look at this trend line, but it also is influenced pretty significantly by our state appropriations. And the next one is our net operating revenues ratio, and this is really measuring whether our current revenues are sufficient to support our current level of expenditures. And as you can see, that's bounced around a little bit. In 2009, it dropped below the red line. That's the time that we we're going into our recession, and we had some pretty significant state budget cuts, and they happened quickly. We had to deal with them. We did dip into reserves to do so. This next kind of strange looking part of the graph is when we had the maintenance of effort funding coming in. And we also, at the same time, we had a plan where we were increasing tuition so that when we hit that cliff, is what we called it at the time, we would have sufficient funds to continue to operate. And so that was 2012 was when the maintenance of effort funding stopped, and we had state appropriations and we had tuition dollars, but we did not have the maintenance of effort. This upward trend is a result of increased enrollments, both out of state and in state. And finally, we are 2006, you can see the effect of declining enrollments. So having gone through those, let's look at where we are currently. So we have our October budget, which was submitted in October 2016. Our recurring operating revenues were supporting our recurring operating expenses, and we did have a 2% reserve on fund balance. Sorry about that. Our May estimated budget, which will be the budget that will be approved by this board at their next meeting, we will have to tap into our reserves for about $2 million. This is a result of some unanticipated overages in our scholarship awards. We will also, at that board meeting, be approving our July proposed budget, which will be our starting budget for fiscal year 2018. And we have already started moving in the direction of making some cuts. We needed to make $3.4 million of cuts in order to balance the budget for fiscal year 2018. We have already started that process, and we will also be able to maintain our 2% fund balance reserve that is required. Our challenges going forward. 3 areas. We got challenges in enrollment, we got challenges with the outcomes-based formula, and we have challenges with, of course, maintaining the proper level of reserves. With our enrollment, we're still moving through and probably have at least 2 more years to move through the earlier decline in our enrollment. And we are also facing some challenges with the level of discounting that we need to do, the scholarship awards that we need to do in order to remain competitive. The outcomes-based formula has been a little bit of a challenge for us. Part of it is related to, as I like to say, you cannot graduate somebody that you did not enroll. And so, you know, it is a part of that whole enrollment process. And also, we have tended to continue to lose funding as the outcomes formula goes through the outcomes fund or formula adjustment process, and that involves looking at the percentage of change among the universities, and funds are reallocated based on how well you performed in relation to the other universities, which has been a little bit of a problem for us with the outcomes-based formula. We've had some conversations with THEC, and we'll continue to have those conversations, but I look forward to having some insight from the business and auditing committee on this also. On the reserves, our reserves consist of a couple of different components. One is unexpended plant funds. In those reserves, we have reserves for the match on our new laboratory science building, which is $18 million. And we also have funds that we have accumulated for the new student recreation and fitness center. Even though that is funded with student dollars and is financed through the Tennessee Bond Authority, we have accumulated funds as the students have paid those funds in, and also the university did provide some funding for that facility because we are taking over the facility which the students had paid for in the past. And so it's kind of like buying their building in a sense, in one sense, but not really. But so those reserves will be moving out this year as we start construction, and so that will drop our reserve level. You'll see that in our budget when we present it. Johnny?
When you're receiving these new buildings, do you get money from the state for planned maintenance, preventative maintenance over the life of the building? Or is that something Tennessee Tech should fund itself?
Well, there's a couple of things. With the student fitness, recreation, and fitness center, we will maintain renewal and replacement funds for that particular building. We will not get state maintenance dollars for that. On the laboratory science building, which is a state-funded academic building, we will be able to request maintenance funds through the state budget process on that.
But you have to do that on a as-needed basis, right?
That is correct, in competition with any other needs that we happen to have on campus.
Have you given any thought to, at the time when you're requesting the funds for the building, to request enough that you can endow the maintenance over the life of the building?
You know, I really would love for that to happen.
That's a no, I guess.
No. We do maintain R&R funds, renewal and replacement funds for equipment. For instance, our banner ERP system, which is our finance, our student in our human resources system. We do maintain R&R for then the hardware, computer hardware for our telecommunications, several of those major equipment, but we have not maintained R&R funds for non-auxiliary, non-student financed buildings.
You may have mentioned this and I missed it. What's our total debt?
I had not mentioned that. I did have a note on it because I thought for sure you would ask me that question. It's about 60 million. It is primarily in auxiliaries in housing. We do have debt. We carry debt on the two new dorms, and we have also been in a process over the last 10 years of renovating most of our other residential halls, and so we do have debt on those. We have some debt that is related to a couple of energy performance projects that we did, and we will have debt once we get into the construction process with the student rec center. But right now, it's primarily.
Do we have any excess cash balance?
We have reserves that are not dedicated to, just to the building process, and so yes, we do have some cash reserves. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Clary. Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to entertain any questions the board may have at this time. That concludes my report.
Do you have any questions for President Oldham?
You just mentioned that we were going to go $2 million into the reserves. I think you mentioned that when you were speaking.
Yes.
I'm just curious. I don't have any idea how much are the reserves? How much do we have?
We have about $80 million in reserves at the current moment. So it is not it's not a huge amount.
Any other questions?
Make a comment, and maybe it's just me, but President Oldham, I think given the challenges that this university has faced, you've done a darn good job.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Governor, did you have something?
No.
I just had a quick, so the $2 million going into, that we're going to tap into the reserves, is that helping to cover the cuts that we had as well? Or I'm trying to figure out how that plays into the overall budget cuts that we're facing.
Okay. And that's a good question. Thank you. The $2 million is the amount of scholarship awards issue that we are dealing with in our current fiscal year. So it is, so our scholarship awards are over what we had initially budgeted in the current fiscal year by $2 million. The cuts that we're talking about are the going forward. So that $2 million continues to go forward, and the awards for fall of 2017 have already been made, and they're another $1.4 million.
So the total from the scholarship problem is, what's the total from?
$3.4 million.
Okay. And so the $2 million is going to cover this current year?
That is correct.
And then the other permanent cuts that we are making is to cover the future impact of the scholarship issue.
The scholarships are not awarded for only 1 year. They are awarded to students on a 4-year, at least a 4-year basis. And the students have, well, they're awarded based on semesters, and so they do have 8 semesters that they can use as scholarship awards.
Any other questions on the report? I think we're ready for agenda item number 10, which is approval and planning of the finance policy. So, Dr. Stinson, I think you're still up.
I am. All right. Thank you. There are 7 planning and finance policies that I wish to present to the board for approval. These policies establish the appropriate processes for budgeting, student fees, and financial performance. They all include revisions to replace the Tennessee Board of Regents with the Tennessee Tech Board of Trustees, and they align our internal approval processes with the Focus Act. These policies could be approved separately or as a group, as they are all focused on financial management and financial resources. You may wish to approve these as a group, Mr. Chairman.
I think we should go ahead and have a motion to approve them as a group. And then we'll go ahead and have a second motion to approve the policies. Since it is financial policies, we'll have a roll call vote on the second motion. So the first motion is or requesting a motion to take them as a group.
So moved.
Second.
Did you catch it? So motion is to take these as a group. It has been seconded. Any further discussion?
I have just a question, and it's really a dumb one, but throughout the policies, you refer to things going through you, the Vice President for Planning and Finance, Dr. Stinson, and then presented to the Administrative Council, University Assembly, and the Board. And that's referenced many, many times, and I don't know who those other two bodies are, the Administrative Council and University Assembly.
Okay, it's a part of the shared governance process of the university, and we do have an administrative council that includes administrators from several areas across the campus and also faculty members. And so we do present policies to that particular group for their comments and approval. And then the General Assembly it approves the things that there is an administrative council, and then there is an academic council, and the General Assembly will approve actions of those two groups.
And who's on the University Assembly then, or you're calling the General Assembly? That's faculty and administration?
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
great, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I just have a quick question too. For the, under budget control, the summary management reports, do those also go to those same bodies, the
policy, I'm sorry, I'm not
it's
sure.
a budget control, it's
I
under
think that's
G,
where I'm
the-
reading from,
Oh.
Dr. Geist, I think on page, well,
I'm on page 82.
I think I'm off on pages now.
The summary management report should be prepared for the top-level administrators to evaluate current financial status. Is that a report that also goes to the bodies that Trudy asked about?
It actually goes to the Budget Advisory Committee, that particular report.
Oh, okay.
Goes through the Budget Advisory
Okay.
Committee.
Any other questions or discussion? So the motion is to take these financial policies up as a group. The motion's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We'll take them up as a group. So I need a motion to adopt these financial policies, and we'll take a roll call vote on that. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Perna has made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Teresa has made the second. Any further discussion on the policies at all? So, Ms. Carpenter, will you give us a roll call?
Trustee Fleming,
Aye.
Trustee Geist,
Aye.
Vice Chair Harper,
Aye.
Trustee Oakley,
Aye.
Trustee Segurty,
Aye.
Trustee Stites,
Aye.
Trustee Van Hooser,
Aye.
Trustee Wilmore,
Aye.
Chairman Jones.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. At this time, we have item number 11 is approval of non-mandatory fees. I think, Dr. Stinson, you're still up to explain this to us.
Right. All right, so I am presenting for your consideration and approval certain selected non-mandatory fees that include specialized academic course fees, miscellaneous course fees, parking permits, and housing fees. These fees could be considered separately or as a group, as they are non-mandatory fees. You may wish to approve those as a group, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Oldham, do you have any other comments on it before we move ahead?
No, these are, as a group, these are non-mandatory fees that not all students have to pay. It depends on what particular programs they're involved in, or whether they live on campus or not, or buy a parking permit or not. It's important to point out, particularly on the academic course fees, these are funds that go directly back to those academic units, and so the students that pay these fees actually see the direct benefit for those fees. So I think as a group, the deans and department heads that have been involved in this process have done a very good job at justifying these fees and what they'd be used for the benefit of student success, and I'm certainly happy to support their proposals.
President Oldham, are these lab fees or the club fees, or what are these?
You could think of them comparable to lab fees, particularly in the sciences. It would
So
be
it's
very
pretty mandatory for
well.
a chemistry student, right?
It's about in almost every case. I think probably in every case, it's about quality of the instructional environment that the students are going to be in, to make sure that they have the not only the equipment, facilities, and capabilities to be successful and to be competitive. So yes.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is if I was a chemistry student, I can't not do without this.
Correct.
So this is pretty mandatory for chemistry.
For a chemistry major, the chemistry course fee would be mandatory. Correct.
It's confusing because we call them non-mandatory.
Yeah.
They're mandatory for the major you're in.
Right. I mean, this is a statewide nomenclature here, but they're non-mandatory in the sense that an English major wouldn't be paying this fee to support a chemistry.
So it's major
student.
specific fees.
It's major specific
Got it.
and correct.
Are any of them first-time fees?
There are a few first-time fees. Dr. Stinson, you want to walk through that?
Yeah. Let me talk about them a little bit. The Ag and Human Ecology, which is the very first fee showing up here, proposed to be at $20, is, excuse me, is a new fee. The rest of the chart is comparison to other colleges or universities that have the same type of fee. Arts and sciences, it applies to chemistry, biology, earth sciences, and physics. It is a new fee. Business, on the other hand, currently has a $25 fee, and they are proposing a $5 increase to that for the next 3 years. Music is a new fee, art is a new fee. Education has a fee for some of their courses. This is a new fee for them for some of the courses. Engineering currently has a fee. It is at $60, and they are requesting to increase it by $5. Nursing currently has a fee, and they are requesting to increase it by $25, I think is the increase on that one. The nursing DNP is a new program, and that is a new fee. That is a program, a joint program with East Tennessee State, and it will be a fee that is charged both at East Tennessee State and at Tennessee Tech.
Yeah, my question was concerning, first-time fee. I guess $25, when you haven't had a fee in the past, seems reasonable, but if it was a first time, at $65, example for engineering, that was why I asked the question. Thank you.
Dr. Stinson, the fees are per credit hour, right?
They are.
So yes, I just wanted to mention that because it doesn't say on the slide, but for instance, if you're taking 15 hours of engineering courses, it'd be $65 times 15 hours, which is closer to like, I don't know, 900 or 1,000 in your head. So yeah, scale the fees you see to how many credit hours a student would be taking.
Are some of these fee adjustments to help compensate for budget shortfall?
They are to help the different academic units to deal with those reductions in resources that they would have. They're all of the funds generated by these fees would go toward instruction or student success. They cannot move them into their academic offices. They can't use them to support office functions or administrative functions.
So these fees are specifically just student-oriented?
They are. They can use them for cost of instruction. They can use them for, I'll just pick on chemistry. Chemistry has chemicals that they need to use that you could not go out and buy those as an individual, so that would help them cover those costs. Earth Sciences has some field courses, and they need to be able to provide transportation for some of the students. And education, some of their needs are in the student success area to make sure that their students are receiving the proper tutoring or whatever it is that they need in order for their to be able to successfully move forward.
Dr. Stinson, as a matter of calibration, can you give us an idea of what the tuition is per hour that we're adding this to? The base tuition?
Yes, I can. I'll find my piece of paper.
Dr. Oldham, will these be put into our packets and our notebook?
In Diligent already, there is a much more detailed explanation.
Yeah. And there,
Under tab 11.
I don't have it up right now, but I think in your Diligent book, there's also an explanation about how much of an increase each of these fees is. Most of them, the range is from $5 to $25 per credit hour in terms of increase. So, for a 3 credit hour course, you're talking anywhere from $15 total to $75, depending on the.
Under tab 11.2, there's a chart under Diligent, and it has current, proposed, and the increase. So you can go and see all the changes.
But the current is just the non-mandatory part, and I was trying to understand what the mandatory part is. So I think page 133, Johnny, is what you're looking for, but Clary, did you find the?
For a 1 credit hour, it's 293.
293, thank you.
Verify that I had the correct number there, 293.
The fee schedule is in here, but not the presentation.
Correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, we've been looking at it, so
Yeah, and we can put the presentation materials in the book for your review
Yeah.
later.
One last question. There's also some, I guess, residential hall non-mandatory fees. Is that also part of this?
That particular slide was just for the specialized academic course fees. We do have residential hall fees that we are proposing an increase in the residential halls. The one thing keep in mind about the residential halls is they are an auxiliary enterprise activity. They do have to cover their own cost, and that includes servicing their debt. And also for us to establish the R&R maintenance for the reserve for that facility. So the residence halls, the increase that we're proposing ranges from 3 to 5%, depending on whether that particular facility has been renovated or it has not been renovated. Tech Village, which is the used to be known as married student housing, it is now just residence halls for students, and they can share apartments and that type of thing. And the average on that is a 5% increase. There's also a request to increase the housing contract prepayment, and that prepayment just reserves a residence hall or an apartment for the student, and it once the student comes on campus for the fall, then that $200 would go toward their rental.
Can I just get another question about the specialized course fees? Is there, I'd like to maybe add some language that fee, if we determine that we are going to enact this fee, that those monies always go back to the units. Some kind of statement that those fees will be used as intended in nursing or in business or in art in some form.
Is that not already part of the requirement?
It is a part of the description for the fees, but it's also a part of our budgeting process. That is stated that those fees that are designated, such as the specialized academic course fees, that they do go back to those units.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm talking about the collapse funds, and so the provision as it is would be that, as you said, it would always go back to the units.
And yes, and that is already a part of the process. Yes.
Okay, so to get back on the agenda, procedural-wise, we have the non-mandatory, I guess, specialized academic course fees, and we need to take that as a group, as a whole, correct?
Or you can do the specialized academic course fees. Then we have some miscellaneous course fees, which are related to online courses. The business MBA has proposed an increase over 3 years. Their current fee is $50, and they proposed a $20 increase over 3 years, $20 each year for 3 years. The total cost of the business MBA program, we have looked at it, is in line with, and will remain in line even with this fee increase, with what is currently charged at other schools. We have 2 online fee proposals for a master's in professional studies and the professional science master's of $45. We have not had an online fee in the past. That is very competitive. If you look over at the Tennessee E-Campus, which has a pretty significant online course fee, and each one of those fees are on a per credit hour basis. The final other fee we have is it's in physical education. It is a GOF fee. Students have been paying to outside vendors $100 in the past. This proposal would increase that to $150. That is a one-time fee, one flat fee for that particular course. And then the third item that we have is the zoned parking permit rates. And this is the second year of a 10-year parking plan. And the proposal is to increase the inner campus, that's the parking that's real close to the buildings, by $15, and also the parking around the residence halls by $15. And then Tech Village residents have the option of purchasing an additional parking permit so that they can drive over to campus, if that's what they would like to do. And they can do that for an additional $77, and we're proposing an increase of $750 on that one. And then our outer campus, which is our parking, which is further away from the campus, we're proposing a $9 increase in that one. These fees are used to pay for construction of parking lots. They're also used to provide a shuttle service for the students, and also to maintain those parking lots. And that is all the fees.
Didn't understand the note. What is that? The parking permit rates?
Our students currently pay a campus access fee, and in that campus access fee there is a $50 fee that goes toward parking facilities. So that's
just part of the tuition?
It is a campus access fee, which is in addition to their tuition. But it's a mandatory fee, and all students pay it. It gives them access to the fitness center. It gives them access to athletic events. It gives them access to resources in the library. It gives them access to some parking. That $50 for instance, if you look at the inter-campus, the new rate would be 220. The students would not pay but 170. So they would, because they're already paying a $50 fee for parking.
Do you have an average of what a student would pay per semester for everything? Tuition, living on campus, before and after these fees?
Yeah.
Do you have a number like that?
The number that Dr. Oldham showed a few minutes ago, a little bit over, I think it's about $4,500. That is the average for all of these fees. It includes all these fees.
Including tuition, right?
And what is that so what is the before and after the
Yeah.
increase?
The delta, it's hard to tell what the average would be because it really depends on what students take and whether they live on campus or not. But I think the average here was about $300 delta. Is that about right, Clary?
That's about right. For instance, an ag student that was taking 12 hours of ag classes, they'd have to be taking 12 hours of ag, they would pay an additional $384.
This or next semester versus this semester, taking the same number of hours?
Yeah, these fees would not be effective until the fall
Right,
of
right.
2018.
Okay.
And that would, also includes some estimated tuition increases. We're trying to look at this, so it'd be a little bit less than that without a tuition increase.
So I had two questions. Let's see. The first one was, I know when I was on the Board of Regents and I'd looked at previous years' numbers, it seems like since the tuition's kind of capped at increasing around 3%, schools were increasing these non-mandatory by like 5-10% every single year to cover costs that weren't covered by tuition increases. So is there a way that you can project what, amount of money you would need to have in the non-mandatory fees to like cover your costs and be healthy financially, and then you can at least project forward how much you need to raise it each year, so that each year it's not a surprise like it's going up 10% or 15% this year, so that you could project it forward. And then secondly, you said the monies are going towards student success. How is, I know in engineering, for instance, these monies go towards renovating labs, but what kind of metrics is the university using to measure that the fee increases are actually increasing student success appreciably?
And we're looking at those on not just department level, but program level, college level, university level, graduation, retention rates. All of those are are measures of whether our student success initiatives are actually working.
I think it would be useful, like with the fee slide, to say, over the last few years we've increased the fee by 5% a year, and we've seen this kind of increase in whatever metric we're driving to, or else it looks like it's hard to justify the fee without that being beside of it.
I guess to get back on track here just a moment. It's a tough thing to talk about increasing fees and increased cost of education. So I'd kind of like to just ask one more question and try to get to the question. In general, with all fees, tuition, everything, and in comparison, Dr. Oldham, how does Tennessee Tech compare with cost of education to, say, UTK, UT Knoxville, our other institutions in Tennessee?
Well, UTK, we're at about 60% of the cost to the student relative to UTK. We are comparable to other state institutions in terms of tuition for the most part, but as I showed you on a previous slide, we're at the lower end of that curve. So in terms of overall affordability, we're still on the very much affordable level. If you really factor in, and we're beginning to take a deeper dive into this in terms of actual cost, out-of-pocket cost to students, if you combine the institutional scholarships and fee waivers that we already provide, which is substantial, it's probably in the 15% range, with the funding that comes to our students through lottery assistance, and then certainly Pell Grants and other forms of financial aid. The actual out-of-pocket cost to most students is relatively low compared to certainly the rest of the country, and I would say for the state of Tennessee as well. Just the lottery scholarship money and local institutional scholarships, you can probably figure about a 40% discount rate average for our student body overall. Another good indicator, global indicator of that is that half of our students graduate debt-free currently, and the average student loan at graduation, the last time I looked, was about $16,000 or $17,000, which is about half the national average. And so the default rate on student loan, 3-year default rate is about 5%, which again is among the lowest in the nation. So all of those global indicators are that we are at the very much affordable end of the curve in terms of education. It kind of goes back to my earlier statement, though. We're attempting to balance the quality issues against affordability, and arguably that's a difficult balance act to do. And so it's important for us to be able to graduate students that have the resources that they need to be successful. We want to make it as easy and light a load on them as possible, but that's our ongoing challenge.
Okay. Given that, we don't have a motion on the floor yet for this, but I would entertain a motion that we accept all of these non-mandatory fees, including the specialized academic course fees, the miscellaneous course fees, the parking permits, and the housing fees, and that we take it all as one group if there are no other objections from the board without having to double up on our motions. Seeing no objections, would someone like to make that motion to accept these fees?
So moved.
Second.
Prentice Segurty made the motion, seconded by Johnny Stight. Any other discussion whatsoever?
Is it,
Just have
Barbara?
one other question. I think there's really not an alternative to this unless we do other reductions. Is that accurate? I know that the faculty's not sitting around figuring out ways to raise fees unnecessarily, so I just think maybe we're not looking at, this is an optional, somebody decided one night and this is now being proposed, correct?
Well, I have to say that it was not that somebody just sit around and decided all of a sudden that we were, because we have been thinking about these, but we really are focused on these fees have been to try to put the resources into the academic areas, into the instruction and student success that is necessary. Now, I think earlier, if you remember, we had a THEC had presented a graph that showed, the difference between even 10 years ago, what resources the state could provide and what resources students provided. And that is a national trend. It is much more on, the cost is onto the students. But I mean, that's, but at the same time, Tennessee Tech's fees are not out of line. And, and when I say that about, state resources, we don't need to forget that in addition to the state appropriations that we get directly for our operations, our students get a little over $20 million in state lottery scholarships that they also bring to pay their fees. So that's a part of that whole process. You're giving those students part of the dollars and saying, you make the decision where you want to spend those dollars. And so they're bringing those to us. And so that means that our fees are going to go up as a result of that, because that's the way the money's flowing as compared to the way it might have been 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Thank you, Dr. Stinson.
Sorry.
Captain Wilmore?
Okay.
yeah, just real quick, we've talked about a lot of numbers, but as I listen and hear the numbers and I do this little math in my head, is it safe to say that we're talking an overall increase in one semester of like 5 to 8%, depending on what your major is?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there could be some, that could be, yeah. as much
Does that
as-
sound like a
Yeah,
logical-
well, I think it depends if you assume a 3 or 4% general tuition increase as well. That's not part of this right now. If you assume that, then yeah, you'd be
I'm
right.
talking overall. Yeah.
Overall,
Now,
yeah.
I paid this
it-
much
you'd-
this
you'd-
semester, next semester I'm paying this
You
much.
would be correct. You would be correct.
Okay.
Just because I understand the student concern as well, but just to put it in perspective, this would mean the difference for us as faculty, let's just take nursing, between having a ratio of 10 students to 1 faculty member at a first semester clinical in the hospital versus a 1-to-6 ratio, or a chemistry class that is an entry-level chemistry class that has 250 versus an entry-level chemistry class that has much fewer students. So that's the translation. Is that a fair translation in terms of what it really means for us as faculty to be able to deliver personalized, high-quality instruction to the students? And we do take that very seriously in terms of we understand Tennessee Tech students are scrappy, hardworking students. And we understand that, but we also want to make sure that when you leave us, you're flying. So that's just to put it in that frame.
I think that described the faculty too. So. Okay, do we have any other discussion? We have a motion on the floor. Seeing none, we need a roll call vote. This is a financial matter, so, Ms. Kay.
Trustee Fleming. Trustee Geist. Vice Chair Harper.
Aye.
Trustee Oakley. Trustee Segurity.
Aye.
Trustee Stites.
Aye.
Trustee Van Hooser.
Aye.
Trustee Wilmore.
I'm a nay.
Chairman Jones.
Aye.
7 affirmative, 1 nay.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. Next,
We
we have.
still feel your pain. We still feel your pain.
I do appreciate the nay vote. I mean, this is what we're here for.
I don't know, 8% seems high for 1 semester increase when you think about everything together. We can hide a lot of fees and a lot of numbers, but bottom line, the cost is what the cost is lump sum. And I know when you weigh everything together, I mean, it's justified, but still, it's difficult.
Barry, if you see that semester over semester over semester, then I think we should raise our hand and say it's a problem. But keeping pace with the investment required, I don't have a problem with that. If it becomes a semester event, then we got a problem.
And that was one of my questions I didn't ask, is what have we done in the past? I don't know what we did before we got to the days.
Yeah, that was the other
Governor?
thing. Oh, sorry. Barry and I
Governor?
were also wondering about when was the last fee increase for tech, this.
In terms of fees, non-mandatory fees? It's been a while. Yeah, we have not raised these fees. We did an engineering fee increase, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
We did a fee increase 3 years ago that was implemented over 3 years, so the last phase of it for the engineering students actually went in last year.
So, yeah, these fees are not played with annually. I mean, this is a fairly rare event.
My observation is, as Prentice said, I think we're trying to keep up with the trend to cover costs. But anyway, Governor, you wanted to make.
Yeah, I just want to say, this is exactly what we hoped this board would do. Be fighting for students and their families and have faculty people say, hey, here's what this looks like in real life in the classroom, and the president and administration that present the overall view. This is just what we want this board to do and what couldn't happen before when it was part of a larger organization. So just well done. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Stinson. At this point, we are ready for, I think it's item number 12. Dr. Garashi, you have a presentation for us? Approval of academic affairs and policies.
First, Mr. Chairman, I wish to offer my congratulations and best wishes to you and to all members of the board. Indeed, this is a momentous occasion for our university, and I feel very privileged to represent the Division of Academic Affairs during this inaugural meeting of the board. There are 4 academic policies that I wish to present to the board for approval. These policies establish the appropriate processes for submitting required notifications to the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. They all include revisions to replace Tennessee Board of Regents with the Tennessee Tech Board of Trustees and align our internal approval process with the Tennessee Higher Education Commission requirements. These policies, Mr. Chairman, could be approved separately or as a group, as they all share the alignment with the Tennessee Higher Education Commission in common. You may wish to approve these as a group.
I think if there's no, are you ready? I'm sorry, Doug.
Yes, once that decision is made, I was going to walk through very briefly and state what each policy is.
Go ahead.
All right, so policy number 224, its purpose, and perhaps just stating the purpose would suffice unless you have questions that I could go through details. But the purpose is to establish a process for submitting required notifications of Tennessee Tech's academic actions to Tennessee Higher Education Commission in order to maintain the state's academic program inventory. Number 225 establishes an approval commission. Number 226 establishes an approval process for major modifications to currently approved academic programs to adhere to the Tennessee Higher Education Commission's policy on academic program modifications A11. And finally, 227 establishes an approval process for new academic units at Tennessee Tech.
If there's no objections from the board, I'll take these up as a whole. So at this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept these academic affairs policies of 224, 225, 226, and 227. Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept them as a whole, although I'd like to talk about them after we accept them. Is that okay? For future meetings.
Sure. Absolutely. My intent was, if there are no objections, to take them up as a whole and then just have a direct motion on all of them together.
I move that we do that.
Okay. We have a motion to accept these academic policies as presented. They are published and have been so on the diligent board. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have a discussion at this point. I was talking to the provost at lunch about the idea of when we have students here, to make sure that the student we're sending out in the workplace matches up to what the workplace is needing, not just something, but the thing. I think it'll give us a competitive advantage in the hiring of our students. And then secondly, back to the point I made earlier, where if we have a student who comes into tech and after a year he figures out this college thing is not for me, I would like for us to have a program that the academics come up with that redirects this person back to a TCAT or some certification program, even to a smaller school like a community college where he could be nurtured or she could be nurtured to maybe start again and do better and get interested in it. But there are just some people in my industry, construction, we need those people, and they don't need to go to college, all of them. They do need to have higher education. They need to have training after high school, but they don't have to have necessary college after high school. So I just would like for us to encourage the provost to begin looking at that and see what we might come up with that would be helpful to those two ends, matching up our students to the industry and providing a graceful escape for the person who is here and figured out it's not for me, rather than just drop out.
I think those are very good comments. Two quick points is, number one, I know, at least in the College of Engineering, I know they have very active industrial advisory boards, which I have been on for many years, so has Trudy, and I don't know how it is in all the other colleges and universities, but I think that is the ideal place for industry to ensure that, or influence, help to guide the academic direction. I think from what we learned this morning, I don't know as a board that it's not our place to necessarily direct that, but I do think the mechanism is there. I certainly, I mean, it's not, I guess not necessarily my call, but I really do appreciate what you're saying, is that college is not the perfect place for everyone, and as a university, we need to do a better job helping people find where they should be, not necessarily only focusing on graduation rates.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I agree with you that it is not our place to be prescriptive as to how it's done. It is our place to make sure that our students are matching up with what the need is in the marketplace.
That's very important. I agree.
That's our place.
I think you're right on our graduates. On those that are deciding to drop out of freshman year or go to something else, maybe we need Mike's help to help us think through statewide how to make that happen, as opposed to Tennessee Tech being the place.
Okay.
Wait,
We're a
sorry.
bit off the topic of these policies, so I'm going to pull it back in, and let's go ahead. We have a motion, we have a second, and if there are any other discussions specific to these policies, we'll take it up. Otherwise, I'll move on, and we can bring that back up in other committees or executive committee at some time. But don't forget the point. I think it's very important. Any other discussion on these policies? Okay, let's call the question. I don't think we need a roll call vote, so all in favor of approving these academic affairs policies signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We have approved these academic policies. And we will come back to that. May not be today. Dr. Garashi, I think you also have some academic affairs matters, item number 13 on the agenda.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, if I may just make a brief comment. I totally agree with Trustee Stites, and we had a discussion about that. I would like to point out that we have put in place a set of policies internally and a checklist for new academic programs that hopefully we will bring to you in the future to make sure that they're relevant to the needs of Tennesseans and the state of Tennessee. And of course, all of these would require, in addition to our own board's approval, Tennessee Higher Education Commission's approval, and they expect from us to do the same type of a study as well.
Thank you.
The College of Business has proposed the establishment of a Master of Accountancy program using online technologies to increase Tennesseans' access to graduate accounting education. Graduate accounting is presently a concentration within the MBA program. This proposal creates a stand-alone graduate degree in accounting. Dean of the College of Business, Dr. Payne, is here should the board wish to discuss any details of the program. The program has received all of the internal reviews and approvals. We are now submitting this proposal for the board's approval.
Do we have a motion to accept this new Master's of Science degree in accountancy?
I so move.
Motion's been made and seconded. Do we have a second? Verna made the second. Do we have any further discussion on it?
I always have a comment, but I just have one comment. This was an exceptionally well-prepared package, even dealing with revenue generation. So I thought that it was just an impressive job of documenting need and the whole process, and I'm going to sign up. Anyway.
Just a comment.
I'm not going to sign up, but I do have a pile-on comment with that. I made the comment to Dr. Oldham yesterday, Dr. Payne, that I felt like this was a great business case, and I wish people in business could write business cases as well as you all wrote a business case for this. So, thank you.
And I was just going to say, this is typical for what will come through as new programs are proposed. The faculty work very hard on the new programs. We always have that cost estimate. We always have we can always show that we're not going to lose money with these kinds of documents. And so, yes, even though the College of Business did do an exceptional job, it's very par for the course for what you are going to see as proposals come through.
Dr. Payne, I'd like to ask if this was driven by the request of industry, or, I mean, it doesn't matter how clever you wrote this up if our graduates can't find a job at the end of the day.
Thank you, Trustee Stites, for that question. And as a matter of fact, it was. It is, as you all know, industry today is demanding more and more, not only from our graduates, from graduates of other institutions across the state. And this certainly comes from an industry need. It's one of raising competition. It's one that comes from the demands of industry to have not only degreed, in this case, accountants, but also accountants that are moving toward completion of their CPA in that licensure realm. And those that aspire to the CPA need 150 hours, and then of course they also have to pass the CPA exam. And this program, from a very pragmatic, practical standpoint, also moves those students through that professional licensure.
Do you think it will give our students a competitive advantage against other students from other universities?
I believe it does. However, I would add to that it also makes it accessible, and this is one reason I truly appreciate the governor's remarks regarding not only our institution but higher ed across Tennessee, in that this, as an online hybrid program, makes the program accessible to those not only that are graduating from our program, but those graduating or have graduated across the state from other programs that need this type of graduate degree work.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments? I think it was an outstanding program. So all in favor of approving this degree, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I think there is one other, I guess, Dr. Grassi, you have a graduate admission policy from MA degrees in the
Yes.
Department of Counseling and Psychology.
Thank you, Dean Payne. This proposal, the next proposal, will better align the Department of Counseling and Psychology's admission policy for MA in Educational Psychology and Counselor Education with their Fast Track program. If approved, students who have successfully completed the department's Fast Track program and met all other requirements for admission to graduate school will be exempted from taking the GRE, Graduate Record Examination. This proposal also has received all of the internal reviews and approvals, and we are now submitting this proposal for the board's approval.
Do we have a motion accepting this graduate admission policy?
So moved.
Thank you, Teresa. Do we have a second? You have a second? Any other discussion or question on that? All in favor of approving this graduate admission policy for the MA degree in Department of Counseling and Psychology signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We have very little left on the agenda, but there are two items that I want to pick up. Number one is that, Nick, when we made you student trustee, we didn't assign you to any committee. I would ask that you serve on the committee with the Academic, Student Affairs, Research, Advancement, and Athletics Committee with Barbara as the chair. Student Affairs is included in that. Can you be on that committee?
Yes, sir, I'd love to.
Thank you very much. One last thing, and it's not on the agenda, but I want to make a statement and actually have a roll call after I'm going to get it, I promise. I wanted to do this first. The point is that I think one of our primary jobs and roles on this board, as I understand it, Governor, I'm learning every day, but is to work through the president. And as it's been told to me, the president is our chief employee. And I just want to make a statement that I would not be sitting here if I didn't have complete faith and respect and admiration for the leadership that you have shown this university. And I'm proud to be here really because of that. And in support of that, I kind of come back to what Trudy Harper alluded to earlier. There's really no place, and it's not actually required, according to what the attorney tells me, that we ratify his position as president. However, it seems to me that if you are our primary employee, that it seems absent not to at least make that statement in our very first meeting. And so I would like to at least entertain a motion to affirm your position as president of the university, and followed by a roll call vote.
So moved.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded, and in light of any other discussion, would anyone like to make any other comments about that before we vote?
I want this to be a clear affirmation of support for this president and for what he's doing from this board. So if you vote yes for this, you are saying that this board strongly supports this president and what he's doing for this university. So there's no misunderstanding.
And my vote will be one that says I wouldn't be on this board but for the fact that Phil Oldham is here, and of course that the governor asked me. But I realize he's sitting next to the governor. But my support for the university is really driven currently by our leadership, and I'm very excited about that.
Any other comments?
Does that include a party at their house?
Sure.
I don't know. I can't take more than a $50 gift, so I don't know. So, anything else? Ms. Carpenter, would you call the roll?
Yes. Trustee Fleming?
Aye.
Trustee Geist? Vice Chair Harper?
Aye.
Trustee Oakley?
Aye.
Trustee Sigardi?
Thank you, Phil, and aye.
Trustee Stites?
Aye.
Trustee Van Hooser?
Aye.
Trustee Wilmore?
Aye.
Chairman Jones?
Aye. Unanimous. Okay, moving on. I wanted to get that out of the way because once you start talking about meeting dates and any other business, I don't want it to get lost. To me, that's one of the most important things we could have done on this day. So, agenda item number 14, we're looking at future meeting dates. It's already been brought to my attention that there's a conflict with at least 2 members for June 7th and 8th. I would propose June the 14th and 15th, unless there are any other complaints or objections. August 17th, does that work for, I think the other dates people have had fair notice on. December 6th and 7th, I understand at least one board member has a conflict.
And I actually have a conflict with August 17th and 18th as well, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry. I don't think I disclosed that. Maybe I did. I don't remember. But I think as long as, and I'll be out of the country, and I don't think I'll be able to do that one by phone. I don't know what our plan is for things like that, where someone's going to be absent.
I would suggest for expediency that if we can at least confirm the June 14th and 15th meeting, that we confirm that meeting, and
Yes.
then we'll have an executive committee meeting soon, or we'll ask the university to propose some new dates and via email secure dates for future meetings. Is that acceptable, Dr. Oldham?
Yeah.
Committee?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll set the June meeting. The others, we will have to work through on schedule. We'll try to do that in the next couple of months. So, with those meeting times set, any other business that needs to be brought before the board? Just before we adjourn, Governor Haslam, I know it's been a hectic day. There's been a lot of housekeeping issues. As you said earlier, at least the board is active. I think this will be a very active board. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. And before I adjourn, would you like to make a closing statement?
Just to say thanks again. The interchange you had over fees and tuition I hope is a model for what happens over everything regarding the direction. That this is what having a board looks like, and I appreciated everybody's feedback on that. And like I said, I'm leaving here more excited about Tennessee Tech than ever. So thank you all.
Then we achieved a great goal. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.